I'm Jess Gorman, and I am a theater maker, and I am also an introvert.
I'm Phil Rickaby, and I'm a writer and performer, and I too am an introvert, and this is the Introvert's Guide to.
On the Introvert's Guide to, we talk about the introvert life and how to live it to the fullest.
We'll choose a topic and discuss it, as well as try to find other helpful hints on social media and the internet at large.
If you want to drop us a line, we would love to hear from you. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at introvertguide2, the number 2, and you can find the website at introvertsguide2.com. If you want to send us a message, you can do that through the website, or you can email us at introvertsguidetostuff@gmail.com. And remember, we may use your questions or comments on an upcoming episode of The Introvert's Guide to.
And if you like the podcast and you listen on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a comment and a 5-star rating. Your comments and ratings help new people to find the show. But even better, whether you listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, if you know someone that you think might like The Introvert's Guide to, tell them about it. Some of our favorite podcasts became our favorites because someone we know told us about them. Jess, I wonder, have you ever had this experience? Somebody that they're sort of an acquaintance or whatever, and that you sort of know them, of them from work. You're not good friends or whatever. And then one day you're having a conversation with them, and all of a sudden they go, "Holy shit, I always thought you were an asshole."
Anyway, it's not so much that they've used the term asshole. They've always just, my close friends and family don't believe me when I say this, but strangers have thought that I am standoffish or intimidating.
Right. I've also gotten stuck up.
You theater nerds.
But it seems to be a thing that happens with introverts when, because we don't talk much and all of a sudden somebody hears us talking and they thought that we were just walking around thinking that we're better than other people.
No, we're just wild cards.
Yeah.
Honestly, we surprise you. That's what we're here for.
Can you think of a specific situation where that happened to you?
I think when I'm hanging out with people who are not theater people, as weird as that can sound, it's just theater folk have a language. We've talked about it before. We've talked about it many times. We have a language. I myself know that I pick and choose my words carefully. I like to be articulate in what I have to say. And when I hang out with groups outside of the theater circle, I definitely get the looks of, wow, that's a big word. And it's not to say that, other groups of people don't use big words. It's just sometimes I can say them in the weirdest context and it can throw people off.
Right.
Like my boss, who may have thought I would sound stuck up to some people.
Right.
It happens.
Just because you use big words.
Yeah, apparently.
I've had this situation where similarly to that, but it was like back in a social situation, group of people hanging out, and somebody that I didn't really talk to very often. And they literally did at one point look at me and say, "Wow, you're not an asshole." And I was so shocked by that. I was like, why would you think that I'm an asshole? And they said, "Well, you just don't say much and you walk around looking like you think you're better than other people." And I was like I'm better than other people? That's just me protecting my existing. That's listen, I will walk around sometimes in public with my "don't talk to me" face on.
Yeah, but that's just your natural face, right? That's when I first met you in person, I didn't get that vibe. I don't know if it's because we already had coffee plans to just meet and talk, right? But doesn't it send you spiraling? It makes you wonder how you've been navigating in the world and how you must have come off in the past.
A little bit. I mean, I will admit that I think it's more likely to happen. Like if I intend to be meeting somebody, I do not have my "don't talk to me" face on, right? But if I'm like out in the
Mm,
world and somebody is like, "Oh, hey, Phil," I may look at them like I don't want to talk to them because there's a good chance that in that moment I kind of don't.
I know, and, like, when the roles are reversed and we say hi to people and then they give us the "don't talk to me" face, then I get the anxiety going of like, "Oh my gosh, they don't like me. Oh no. Oh no, what I do? What I
I mean,
do?"
I'm gonna say that
It's
I have to say that there aren't many situations where I've seen somebody that I know on the street, and I have been so rude as to call them out and say hello. That's not
fair
something
enough.
I'm likely to do unless there's
No.
somebody that, I particularly like and have had a long relationship with and something like that. But for the most part, as we've discussed, if I see somebody I kind of know on the street, I will pretend I do not see them.
Yeah, we're the dive into the
Yeah,
alleyway to avoid
just like,
yeah.
I'll like go into a store or just like deliberately walk by. You don't have my headphones on. I'll just walk by. Like I'm in my world. I don't see you. And usually they are courteous enough to allow us both that fantasy.
Those are nice friends that you have that you never talk
I
to.
mean, listen, I appreciate all of the people who let me walk by them and pretend that I don't see them and didn't call
Yeah.
me out for it. I suspect they too are introverts and we speak the same language. In which case that's great. It's when you're doing that and somebody's like, "Hey Phil," and you're like, "Fuck, you just not let me go."
If you and I know the kind of friends that we are. If we lived in the same city, I know that if we were to see each other passing on the street, we'd just
Yeah.
pass. It'd just be like a, I'll see you later. Don't
Unless we
worry
had
about it."
plans to meet up for coffee. But
Well, no
if we were
kidding.
just walking by each other randomly, I would do
Happenstance.
you the
Like,
courtesy of not acknowledging your existence, and I expect you to do the same for me.
absolutely. It'd be nothing. Nothing. That's
That
friendship.
is friendship. Friendship is magic. But I really, it's a thing that has, like you said, it has sent me spiraling when somebody is like, I always thought that you were stuck up, or I always thought that you were an asshole, that you didn't like people, that you thought you're better than people. Because then I start to wonder, like, what am I doing with my face? What am I doing that gives that impression when I think I'm just an introvert existing in the world?
Yeah, and, like, I just become way too self-aware that suddenly I think about it every once in a while now when I'm in a conversation with someone and it pulls me out entirely.
See, I don't think about it
I
when I'm
now
in the
have to think about, like
conversation. If I'm in a conversation with somebody, I'm not thinking about it. But if I'm sometimes it'll hit me like when I'm in a room and I have my protect myself face on, or I'm just like existing, or
mhm.
I'm out and about, and and I might think like, oh, do people think that I think I'm better than them?
And, like, it gets to, like, that point too where I feel I'm trying to stop myself from being annoyed with it because it makes me feel
Yeah,
sad. It makes me feel sad that I hate that you assumed that of me, that I just didn't wanna talk to anybody, or I thought I was
yeah,
better, or I'm a know-it-all. Like, it makes me feel sad.
yeah, absolutely. And the know-it-all thing is a weird one because it's like, how did you think I was a know-it-all? I didn't say anything in the group.
Yeah. That one I get often, and
Oh, really? Why do
I'm
you
like,
get that one often? Is it because of your big words?
it's because of my big words. Like, I I don't know what it is, like, is someone I had a talk with a friend a long time ago who also gets called a know-it-all. We're just one of those people that we rabbit hole into random topics that we pick up so much random trivia that when someone says something about this topic that we may have, it's obscure topic, but we just know something about it. We're one of those people that can be confused with the well actuallys. We're very careful not to say well actually. It's more of a, oh, you know something? That's actually a common misconception. Here's where maybe the other fact is. And then it's suddenly aren't you just a know it all?
You know what that is,
Like,
though. You know what that is. That's ADHD.
No, it's not. Yes, it is.
But it's also being a person who creates and acts and writes because we're always like sponging in like different information about the things that we're
Oh,
working on.
yeah.
And
Constant research period is
yeah.
in.
And so somebody will say something and you're like, I know things about that. And suddenly you're a know it all.
I honestly, the only thing I can respond with sometimes, it depends on the tone, but sometimes I have to come back with, "I'm sorry, I know things. Okay? I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? Hold it in?
If it's your big words or you're
Can't.
like, I'm sorry, I have a big vocabulary.
Just call me Tennessee Williams, okay?" That's a callback.
Yes.
That's a
Yes, it
callback.
is. Yes, it is. It's, you know, I wonder, I've been kind of wondering about what it is with that. Like, is it something that we're giving off, or is it a perception of other people to somebody who's in the room but quiet?
I had to think about that, and I think where it led me to was what remembering what the word arrogant means. There's that sense of self-importance and that sense of above it all. And I think wherein lies the problem is when we're too quiet in a conversation. And when we do say something, introverts tend to hit things on the deeper level. So we tend to take it somewhere else. And the people around us are like, whoa, what do I do with
Yeah.
this?
You're right about that. You're right about that. Because often it's like there's a lot of people in a room and there's a conversation going on, and we are not above it all, but in a way, not intentionally, but we're like protecting ourselves in the group, right? We
Hmm.
have the I'm protecting myself attitude, that face or whatever it is that we do. And then the conversation turns to something that we know about or that we like. And then we drop the knowledge or we take it, like you said, we take it to a deeper place that maybe they weren't going. They were like, we were just talking about Marvel movies and you had to turn it into like a conversation about the deeper meaning of superheroes and the Ubermensch.
I know. And here comes the existential crisis coming in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what the hell? You mentioned protect yourself a couple of
Yeah.
times. Dive into that.
I know that when I'm out in the world, if I don't want to be bothered, I know that my face closes off, right? And
Mhm.
I'm aware that I do it. And sometimes I'll be out in the world and I will just consciously change my face. And I will like, it's weird to say, but I will open my face so that I'm like taking things in and sort of welcoming things. It's like an energetic thing. And when that happens, people come over and they talk to you,
Mhm.
which of course is the thing I'm trying to avoid. So mostly I don't do that, but that's a thing that will happen in situations where there's a lot of people. Even if you know those people, there's a lot of people will sort of like put me into that situation, and that my face closes off because I am trying to protect my awareness because I'm aware of all of the things, like at a party or some kind of large gathering or anything like that. Like I'm aware of all of the socialization or all of the sounds and all of the things, and it's overwhelming. And
Mhm.
so when I say protect myself, I'm like sort of closing my entire self off from that in order to keep from being completely overwhelmed.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's like a filtration system of all the stimuli that is in the
Yes.
room. Yeah. And that it's hard to explain that to somebody in the moment too, without coming off as arrogant as well,
Yeah.
I
Well,
find.
I mean, sometimes I will use the shorthand. Somebody will be like, "Are you okay?" And just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm introverting," and hope that they
Yeah.
understand what that means, and they're not like, "Oh, poor baby, let me sit with you and talk to you." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no."
No, I'm good, thanks. Oh my gosh, yeah. I find that when there's a lot of stimuli, I can go either one way or the other, and it's either, well, if you can't beat them, join them, and then I'll just have a drained social battery for, like, weeks on
Mm,
end. Or it's the, I absolutely need to just listen and take it all
yeah.
in, and that's when you get the side eye of, wow, you're really quiet.
Yeah.
Everything okay over
Yeah.
there? And then yeah, and then you have to defend yourself of, "No, no, no, I swear I'm having a good
Yeah.
time. I'm just
Yeah.
listening."
It's a weird thing because, we're just listening and somebody is taking offense at the fact that we're not participating, as if you can't
Mhm.
listen and participate.
Damn it, I can
I
do
can do
both.
both. I can do both.
Watch
I
me.
tend to more towards it depends on how long is this thing I'm going to be at. Is there a finite amount of time that I'm going to be there, or is there an obligation to be there longer? There are some things where there's an obligation to be there for several hours, in which case, if I join it and I sort of like have if I'm outgoing and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to run out of battery. And then when I, instead of protecting myself, I'm shutting down later.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of, I will protect myself and sort of be quiet until there's a moment where I can sort of like, all right, it's safe now. The good, like people, I have a good group of people around me. I'm comfortable. I know these people. And then I could be outgoing for a bit and then just sort of like recede back once that's kind of done, you know?
Yeah. Now we've talked about the how this can be, for folks that we're not too familiar with. Has it ever impacted more of the closer relationships?
Not particularly. Certainly not in a long
Hmm.
time. I'm
Well, that's good. That's a good
pretty
sign.
open about my introversion. I talk about it, on this podcast and also in life. Like I like to make sure the people that are around me know about how introversion is in the world and how I am in the world. So it doesn't happen that often. Used to happen more, but again, more for acquaintances because when we're around people that we're comfortable with, that's why sometimes in certain situations, somebody will find out that you're an introvert and they don't believe it because you're so outgoing or you're not shy. And that's how it is when you're with people that you're comfortable with.
Mhm. I'm thankful it hasn't happened in a long time because you are right. Like you know, the people that we have in our lives now with doing this podcast, they're very clearly now under the understanding because I mean these episodes are out there,
Yeah.
right? But also we've had we've had the time to grow and cultivate this and make sure that the people in our circle are in the understanding. I think in the past when maybe I didn't understand myself, it definitely came up a few times, especially with some of my closer friends of maybe why I just didn't wanna hang out
Mm-hmm.
as often.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the past when I've denied hanging out, I've gotten it a few times of, "What, do you have better things to do? Or do you just not wanna hang out? Are
Right.
we boring you?" Like, I've definitely gotten that
Yeah.
before.
I fortunately haven't had that. Um, but I do notice a difference between being an adult, also an old man, but being an adult who is more in control of the people that I choose to associate with. Where
Mhm.
when you are younger and in school, for example, you do not get to choose the people that you socialize with. So my friend group is, for want of a better word, more curated now than it was when I was younger. When I was
Mhm.
in school, all levels of school, I feel like that was something that because I didn't have control over it, and I couldn't really verbalize what it was. All I knew was introvert was bad. When I'd heard it, it was said in like a bad way. So I denied it, and even though it was painfully obvious that that's what I was, I tried to show that I was not introverted to teachers who told me to be more outgoing and all this sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And with classmates, I was often very uncomfortable around the way that they interacted, and so I would definitely shut down. And that doesn't happen so much anymore, except for rare occurrences when I choose to go to a large party.
When do you go to a large
Listen, there are
party?
times when somebody has a wedding or somebody has a Halloween party or a Christmas party, and there's going to be a larger number of people than I am particularly comfortable with. At which
Mm.
point, because we know that my ideal size for a party is like 5 people plus myself, and any more than that exceeds my threshold. But other people like larger parties, and so when I go to those, it can be difficult. I'll have to charge my social battery and then also guard the amount of energy that I'm using when I'm there.
Fair enough. I think one of my challenges that I face when it comes to this conversation is when someone does bring it up of, "Oh, wow, you're actually a lot more chipper than I thought you would be."
Right.
I think I still have a problem with trying to keep the conversation
Mhm.
lighthearted without sounding more arrogant than the way I apparently was coming off, and I don't know if that's just me again spiraling trying to convince them
Mm.
otherwise, but yeah, I still struggle with how to handle it in that
I wonder
situation.
about that because first off, when somebody says something like, "Oh, you think you're better than us," or whatever is somebody saying, there is part of me that, wants to go, "Yeah?" But
Oh, it's
I know
so
it's so
tempting.
tempting. It's so
It is.
tempting.
It's right
It's like,
there.
but, I'm a person who exists in the world, and I might have to deal with those people again. And so that's another thing that I'm gonna
Yeah.
say. But there's something about that moment, and it really does. I don't wanna say it hurts, but it really does make you question everything. Like, what am I doing that's making you think that? Because I think I'm engaged in the conversation, just listening.
Mhm.
Or I think that, no, I'm over in the corner visiting the cat. I'm good, but then somebody thinks that, I'm aloof or stuck up because I'm not interacting. It's weird reacting to that. And fortunately, it hasn't happened very often in the past, but or it hasn't happened very often in recent years, but it's still something I think about.
Yeah. I still think about it, and I actually wonder if sometimes there even needs to be a period of recovery where you do need to have that
Mm.
self-assurance of, "This is just one person's
Mhm.
opinion." They don't know what's going on, and you do have to remind yourself of the cliche of you don't know what's going on in somebody's life,
Yeah.
right? I don't know, like, it's tough to not think about it at, 2 o'clock in the morning
Yeah, of
randomly,
course.
not speaking from
No, of course not,
experience
of
or
course not,
anything.
of course not. No,
Never.
no,
No.
no,
No.
neither of us would
No.
think about that kind of thing late at night.
Mm.
It is the way that have you ever okay, just to back up, have you ever looked at somebody and suddenly realized that you have no idea what's going on in their head? And not in a bad
Yeah.
way, not in a bad way. You're just like you're doing something and you're thinking your thoughts, you're having your internal monologue, and you look at somebody and you're like, "I don't know what they're thinking about." Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I know what you mean, but, it's just it hasn't happened in a while, but yeah, suddenly this person just feels
Yeah.
unknown.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And because they're, just the realization their perception is completely different from yours, and so they are having an entirely different train of thought than you are, and it's a weird thing to contemplate sometimes.
On the other side of that, the complete opposite is when someone affirms the person that you wanna
Mhm.
be,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
organically. That
Oh,
feels good.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, it depends on the social situation, right? And it
Mhm.
depends on the people they are. I haven't like I said, I haven't had somebody, like, say that because I was quiet, they thought I was an asshole, or they thought I was stuck up in a while, like, maybe, I guess 7, 8 years, but it has happened. So, just I guess I struggle with as I suppose extroverts struggle with us when we are quiet in that sort of setting. I struggle with what it is about us existing quietly in a room that makes us seem like we are stuck up or aloof.
Like, it's
Yes, yes,
distasteful,
yeah,
right? It's the sense of unease about us.
yeah.
I don't know, again, if it's just the sense that the conversation around introverts and extroverts is not new, but it is recent that we've actually started to pick it apart, and people are looking inward more often, especially since
Yeah,
COVID, especially since
yeah.
then. We've all thought that we were extroverted at one point or another, and when you hear introvert, you think of the self-important, smarter than everybody, secret genius, the stereotypical quiet, shy person. And I don't know if it just makes people uneasy still, thinking that there's this secret quiet genius in the corner who's just taking everybody apart in the room. And there's that sense of the
Hmm.
self-esteem maybe coming up and maybe feeling like, are they picking me apart? Boy, was I wrong when I find out that I wasn't. I gotta say
Yeah.
something, right? It must be in their minds a lot more
I
for
wonder.
them to think that and say
Yeah.
it.
I wonder if there's something that's similar to the way that people react when they find out that I don't drink.
Mm,
Right? If I'm at a party and people find out that I don't drink, suddenly people feel like they have to apologize for drinking or they feel like I am judging them.
mhm.
Meanwhile, I don't care. It's just something that I do or don't do. And but I will have people say things like, "Oh, I don't trust anybody who won't drink." Things like that. But like I wonder if there's something similar for people who are more extroverted when they see somebody at the large gathering who's just taking everything in. Are they thinking
Mhm.
that people that they're just somebody's sitting there judging them or having the conversation? And is that more on them than on the introvert?
It is 100% on them. It is the one of these things is not like the
Yeah.
other, and you see that one person out of this crowd of people who just seemingly is not having a great time, and if that's gonna ruin your vibe in the party, you're not having that great of a time
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same with the people who I don't trust someone who doesn't drink. I Do you need that to have fun? Listen, I do partake, and if somebody like I have friends, you and a few others that just don't
Mhm.
drink. I can still hang out with you and have a
Yeah.
good time, right? I can still go to a party and there's that one person who just isn't seemingly looking like they're having a good time, not on my radar and shouldn't be any of my
Yeah.
business.
Absolutely.
100%
And I
on
find it
them.
interesting because, just because I'm listening and I'm quiet doesn't mean that I'm not having a good time. I may be
Mhm.
really enjoying the banter or the story that's being told or just the back and forth. I'm just not particularly participating in that moment. I'm just listening. And just listening doesn't mean that I'm judging the situation or anything like that.
I would really hope that these points that we experience, no one has ever gone through a hostile moment where it's escalated to somewhere it hasn't been. I really hope that that hasn't happened for a lot of our listeners,
Yeah.
but I'm very positive it
I
has.
would I mean, it's never been that way for me, but of course, the other people have them that are in other situations, and I would be very concerned if it did because what can you do in that situation? You can apologize for being quiet, but, if somebody has decided that you're judging them and that can turn dark, I I mean, I'm glad that that hasn't happened, but if it has happened to one of our listeners, I'm really sorry that
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah, and I hope you didn't take that
Yeah.
personally. My
Yeah.
goodness. It's terrible.
Because I could see how somebody who's already insecure might react to when if once they get in their head they're being judged, that can change the whole vibe in the room.
Yeah. Do you have any useful phrases that you use to navigate those conversations?
I think it I mean, I'm just if somebody is like, "You're being so quiet," I'm just like, "Just introverting." That's my usual, like and if they
Mhm.
don't know what that means, I'm prepared to talk to them about what that means. I'm prepared to say, "Yeah, I'm an introvert and it's okay. I just, I'm guarding my energy and I'm listening and I'm
Yeah.
having a great time."
See, if someone were to say, "Oh, you're really quiet," I can explain, "Oh, I'm just an introvert, honestly." And I have my extroverted husband who can come into the conversation, go, yeah, she's introverted. She's got this podcast. You should listen to it. It's really good. You want me to hook you?" And he'll like link it up. I'm like, that's my plug
Yeah,
right
there you
there.
go.
There he
There you go.
is.
You've got
That's
somebody
my
else to do
man.
that for you. You got somebody to do that for you.
My voice goes like whenever somebody says like, "Oh, I honestly, you were a little intimidating. You were quiet. You never really said much. And like when you did, you use big words." My voice suddenly goes up like 5 octaves. And I'm very much like Snow White at that point. I am so like, I'm so sorry. You
Uh-huh.
what?
Uh-huh.
No,
That's the
no.
involuntary diffusing of this situation. Intimidating?
It
How
really
can this be intimidating? And the voice goes up and you're like, "I'm gonna diffuse this,
never.
not me."
Ha, 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 ha. And then I skip off with my
With your
birds
bird
and
friends? Yeah.
woodland creatures, and off I go.
Yeah, it is interesting how our reaction in that situation is diffusing. If somebody's like
Mhm.
accuses you of being judgmental or aloof or whatever it is, how our reaction is to try to defuse the situation rather than just be like, I'm curious why you think that. I'm just being quiet.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, kinda thinking about it now is we almost feel like it's our last chance to put a positive spin on
Right.
our impression,
Right.
right? Like, "Listen, I know first impressions mean a lot here, but I am begging for you to give me another chance here. Please take me
But it really
back."
kind of depends because in certain situations, somebody who says that has automatically told me that I'm probably not really that interested in getting to know you much better. You know?
Listeners, say what you mean.
Yes. Say what you mean. I mean, eh, God, I come off as such an asshole on this show sometimes, I think.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Oh, man, no. You swear more, but I feel like I'm the one that comes off a little bit more
It
standoffish.
may be true. But I think that no.
Wow.
Oh shit. This was the last episode of the Introvert's Guide
Finale. Bye-bye.
before we ever made it to episode 100.
Oh my gosh, we were so close.
Yeah. No, I do think that it's a situation that says more about the person who's making this statement
Mhm.
than it does about you, the introvert. Even though it feels like it's on us, right? When that happens, when somebody says that we're aloof or standoffish or arrogant or something like that, we feel like it says something about us when it doesn't really. It says something about their discomfort with quiet,
Right.
which is I find a weird thing, but I think we've all known people who need sound, and so they just talk.
Yeah. I'm yeah, we can't
No,
relate. It's not in this
no.
space.
Speaking of just talking, I met somebody once, and they were in a relationship with a long distance partner who lived overseas, and
Okay.
they when they weren't needed to be doing something, they were on the phone talking to this person constantly, and all I could think was, that's such a deal breaker for me. If you need to be talking to
Oh.
me constantly when we are not together, I can't do that.
Yeah, no. I'm good,
Yeah.
man. I'm good.
Yeah.
No. No, no.
I mean, the thing is, like, I can have like a good conversation. It might last an hour. As soon as it goes past that hour, I'm starting to be like,
Yeah, as soon as I feel myself fidgeting and starting to,
yeah,
like, scroll through my
yeah,
phone, it's done. I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah. And that's
Yeah.
just
If I have my Rubik's Cube coming out now suddenly, thanks a lot, by the way. Best thing
nice,
ever.
nice.
The best.
It like I definitely have like my conversation end point, right? When I'm having a conversation. And phone, I think to me, phone is hard because you only have the vocal to go with. You can't make eye contact. You can't see body language, things like that. So you only have whatever's happening in the voice. And so I feel like I'm more concentrated when I'm talking to somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
And when that happens, if I get to that point, I very quickly get to I'm going to start walking around the apartment kind of thing, or I'm starting to fidget with things, and looking at my video game controller and thinking like, how can I get off this phone call? If I'm thinking about how can I get off this phone call, I'm done. So
Oh, yeah.
maybe that just makes me
Oh,
aloof or arrogant.
maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe we are just
Maybe we are
assholes.
just assholes.
It is no secret that people find I should just say people when I really mean
Right.
extroverts, really find introverts to just be it's uneasy about us. There's something that they just don't
Right.
like, right? Introvert Dear, of course, has an article amongst many, right? And the article is 7 unintentionally rude things introverts do.
Oh.
Now, I am going to read off. I'm not going to read the descriptions. listeners, please feel free to go ahead and read that on your own time. But I'm going to read off each one, and I want to know if you've been guilty about it with this, and I'll answer too, okay? Starting off strong with number 1. Have you ever zoned out, Phil?
Shit. Yeah.
I
I
I know, like, we're gonna start off here with the
I'm
easy one. We've all zoned out.
I even had a term for it. I gapped out. I totally gapped out.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You
I gapped.
gapped.
And I
Ugh,
just and it's
sorry, I
yeah.
gapped.
And it's weird when it happens. You don't expect it to happen. And it's just it's I think it's kind of like this social energy changed. It doesn't happen one on
Yeah.
one with me. It happens in groups. And suddenly it's just like staring off into the middle distance for a second.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be like, hey Phil, and it'd be like, oh sorry, it's just gapping.
Yeah. Like, I have this thing, I don't know if it's if it's ADHD thing here or if it's just an introvert all around here. You ever find that you're staring off in the distance or you're looking at people as they're talking? Do your eyes ever start
Oh my god,
blurring?
yes.
Like, "Oh, thank you." I know, like, suddenly you're zoning and you're like,
Yeah.
What's happening here?" And it's not focusing
Yeah. I just
properly. Like,
somebody's
wow.
talking and it usually happens when they're like either really dull or,
Mm.
whatever happens after that. And suddenly you're just like you're in the conversation with them and suddenly they just go soft and you're just like not
Oh, yeah.
really focused on them
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh, I feel so bad, but I know a whole bunch of people listening to this episode all just jumped up at once.
Yes.
You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. Okay, next. Number 2, seemingly standoffish. We know this one. That's an
Hmm.
easy one. Okay, okay, all right. They disappear for days at a time.
Yeah.
You've
I've
never
never
done
done that. I've
this.
never done
Yeah,
that.
you've
I've never
like I can like we're going through the list here and I'm like, okay, maybe they're on to something. Maybe we are like, are we a little like standoffish? Are we is our behavior distasteful? That's the word for me today, right now.
distasteful.
Distasteful.
See, I have been known to disappear for days at a time, weeks at a time. Friends of mine don't hear from me for weeks. They might see a post on social media, but I haven't messaged them. Uh,
This is the only way
This
we
is the only way
connect.
we connect. And the occasional text to say, "Are we good to record tonight?" That's
Yeah.
pretty much
How you
that's
doing?
our entire
Yeah.
text history.
That
That's
is
it.
it, folks.
But we are when I'm having, you know, like let's remember I'm the person who needs to set reminders to say hello to friends, right?
Mhm.
So disappear for days on end, weeks on end, thank you very much. As far as some people are concerned.
Yeah, that was putting it
Yeah.
politely. That was so polite.
So polite.
Oh my gosh. They appear uninterested or unexpressive. I don't think I've gotten that one before.
I don't think anybody's said that to me, but I will be honest, this face, if I'm actually bored, I just like you could probably see it. But like if you're watching, it'll happen before I realize, oh, you're doing a thing with your face. Fix your face. And I'd be like really
Now,
force
listen,
myself to have like a I'm listening face when I already like unfocused and was like not paying attention and my face sort of dropped. And I showed
I don't want to put myself in a
mhm.
hole here. I've never seen that face, so I'm kind of
Yeah, yeah.
glad.
No, you're good. Yeah,
I'm
you're good.
good.
Yeah, you're good. There
Hey, never seen
most of the
it.
people that I know have not seen it, but it's happened
Okay.
in work situations, in some social situations where my face I forget to like make it look like I'm interested or whatever if I'm not, and my
Right,
face
right.
will drop and I'll kind of have like this like disdainful look where I can't stand the person, and suddenly I have to
Mm.
remind myself, fix it, and I will go my eyes will get wide and I'll like do something with my mouth just to like try to make it look like I'm concentrating. It's pretty bad.
Wow. Your inner voice is demanding.
Yeah, but again,
Demanding.
I don't want those people to think I'm an asshole. So I try to fix the
Well,
thing with my face.
it's They frequently turn down plans.
I mean, we know that turning down plans is your love language.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Canceling
Cancel
plans,
plans with me. You're my best
canceling
friend
plans is your love language. And
forever.
yeah, I guess people,
See, that one doesn't seem rude to me, though.
but again, it wouldn't, because canceling plans is your love language. And
Yeah, but like, what's the reason for
I mean,
canceling, right? What's the reason?
I don't have the spoons for it.
That's not rude.
But if somebody
I
doesn't
think that's
understand
reasonable.
that situation, they may see it as rude.
Mm.
I Listen, I used to bail on plans all the time and feel guilty about it. I can remember specifically
Oh,
people would be like, "Hey, we're having a get together tonight." I'd be like, "Yes, it sounds awesome." And then day of, I'd be like, "I just didn't. I don't."
yeah,
And then I would think, like, if they ask about it, like, what am I gonna say? I'll say I fell asleep or
yeah.
something like that, or I didn't feel well or whatever. Which, none of which was true. Now I will just admit that I wasn't up for it.
That's better than making up outlandish stories.
Which you don't do anymore, right?
Never. Nope. No, I don't. I don't do that anymore. Not
Not
anymore.
anymore. Not anymore.
Those days have come and gone. Far behind me.
But it's I do think that again, we're it's not that these things are rude, it's that they seem rude to people. I have to keep that in
Right.
mind because as soon
That's
as you
true.
said that
Okay.
one, I was like, "Well, how is that rude? That's just like blah."
That's where my mind went too. I was like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Okay, hold on here.
Yeah.
Defense mode
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. But
Okay.
it doesn't seem rude to other people. To us, it's a love
Yes.
language.
That's right. Very romantic. Now, here's one that I don't quite understand. They act secretive. They're not an open book. I don't have to tell you my life
Exactly.
story. If you ask me a question about my life, I'll
Mhm.
answer it. Depending on what it is, I won't go into detail. Not everyone has to know my life.
I
Mm?
can see this not as being rude, but I understand this situation because I am the person who, in my work life, rarely talks about my personal life. These are two separate things. There's no reason for them to interact. I've been in my current
Mhm.
place of work for almost 10 years, so there's like, that changes a little bit, but I am generally a person who keeps a separation and I don't talk about my life outside work too much. I keep it
Mhm.
close to the chest. They don't need to know all the things about me. And then there's people who are just like, "Yeah, here's everything about my life." And I'm like, "What? Why
Well,
would
damn.
you why would you
Okay.
tell it?" That seems weird to me.
Yeah, it does. It's like I'm the same way. I don't volunteer information if it's not pertinent and if you don't need to know it and it's not a part of the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
No.
But I don't see that as rude. Like if you ask, like
Yeah.
just the same for me. Like if somebody asks, I'll answer. I don't
Right.
unless it's, no, there are very few things people would ask that I'm not going to answer, but like I don't need to volunteer it. You don't need to know.
And is that really just exclusive to introverts? I feel like there's some extroverts out there too who are not going to volunteer every piece of information.
I mean, I would hope, but we don't
One
have
can
one
hope.
on the program right now to tell us.
Extroverts listening, let us know.
Please.
Inquiring minds want to
Yes,
know.
ours.
Okay, the last one, just because we're going to top it off. They seem arrogant.
Seem arrogant.
They
They
seem
seem
arrogant.
arrogant.
Now, taking in everything we've
Yeah.
just said, what do you think?
I mean, obviously there are people who think that we're being arrogant or that we seem arrogant.
There's no
There's no
escaping it.
escaping it, but I we're not like I'm just existing, you know?
I'm just existing with my canceled plans. not talking to anybody, not telling you about my life,
Avoiding you on the street, pretending I don't see you. What's arrogant about that?
no eye
What
contact.
is arrogant about
I
me
don't
pretending that I don't see you as I walk down the street?
People are very strange. People are very they're
Or is it
strange.
us? Are we like is pretending I don't see you on the street rude? Is that arrogant?
Like we said, it's a
It
love
is a love language. It
language,
is a love
right?
language. And
It
I appreciate the
is.
people who play along. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a new love language.
Yes.
So can we fault them
Thinking that we're
for
arrogant?
seeing us like that? Can we fault them? I wish we had more, you know, usually on episodes we have some advice to
Yeah.
give, but it's just I think you got to roll
I
with the
think you do.
punches
I
with
think
this
you do.
one.
And
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I can understand why somebody might think that the quiet or the not saying hello when I walk past, that is arrogant. I can understand that. But also I don't. I'm just existing in the world the best way I can.
No. I just want to go home, man. That's
Yeah.
it.
I'm just trying to get where I'm going. Don't
Yeah, get from A
Because
to
there's nothing
B.
worse than like somebody stops you on the street and you're in the process of going somewhere and they say hello and you start to talk to them and you're kind of like, I was on my way to a place and,
Fruit fly in my
and
face there.
I'm on my way to a place and okay, we're having the conversation. Like
Yeah.
I have to no, okay. Like we were both going places
Uh,
and now we're trapped here. Much better to like not get stuck in that situation, I think.
No, I know. And how do you tell them if you're in a hurry?
Right?
How do you tell them?
Yeah, exactly.
You
No.
can't. You can't be like, "Hey, how are you? I'm so sorry I can't talk. I gotta go." Like, you can. You
I think
should.
that any kind of street conversation, if it's going to happen, it needs to start with where you headed, you know?
Mm.
So that you have the
Mhm.
opportunity to
Okay.
be like, I'm going to work or I'm going to meet somebody. So it and of course it's rare that I'd be like, I'm just trolling for no reason. It could happen.
There's people
I
that do
know.
it. Don't you put that jinx on me.
I go for walks, but I am often going to a place. So meeting somebody, that should be your answer. Somebody doesn't respect the love language of walking past you on the street, immediately ask them where they're headed. So they have to ask you where you're headed. And then you could be like,
But
I'm
what
meeting
if they
somebody.
ask? What if they ask, "Oh, who are you meeting?" What are you gonna say? What are you gonna do?
God,
Come
why do
on,
you do this
Rickaby.
to me?
Come on.
See, that has to be a statement that you have to choose that very carefully.
Right.
Because you don't
Okay.
want to say somebody
Okay.
that they know. Because then they'll be like, oh, hey, I'll come too.
Oh, good lord. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Even if you are meeting that person.
Yeah, 'cause no.
No.
You weren't
No,
invited.
I was
You were
meeting
in the
them.
group chat.
I was meeting them. If you come, it's going to change the whole dynamic.
Oh my gosh, there's people with that. Oh, this episode pissed me off.
Who knew? Who
Man.
knew this was going to be the one that
Yeah.
pissed you off?
Oh, this is the one that did it. This is it. Did me in.
So, have we learned anything today? Not a damn
No.
thing.
Not a damn thing. No, you know something? I think this episode was just more of a it's going to happen. And when it happens, take it in stride. Don't take it personally. As hard as
Yeah.
that is, don't take it personally. Because that's not who you are.
No. And I think you're right about that. I think you're right about that. This is more of an affirmation episode than an episode
right.
that's going to teach us something. We are just introverts existing in the world, and we cannot help how some people perceive us when we are quiet.
That's right. This is an episode of solidarity.
That's correct. Union strong. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever it is.
Okay. Friends, we want to thank you for listening to this podcast. And as always, I want to remind you that we do this show and we give it to you for free. Every 2 weeks, we put out an episode for you and we don't charge you anything. And we don't have any advertising on this site. We don't have a Patreon that's currently running. And we don't have advertising on this show. That said, doing a show like this, doing any kind of podcast does cost money to produce. We have to pay for the website. We have to pay for hosting the audio files. We have to pay for editing software. There's so many things that we have to pay for. And if you enjoy this podcast and you would like to help us do that, you'll find a link in the show notes where you can do that. And so please feel free to do that. Also, we're considering some merch. I put some t-shirt ideas on the old Instagram. And so if you want to have a look at those and you want to give us some feedback, have a look and let us know if you'd be interested. Like if we had t-shirts, would you buy them? But aside from that, besides financial assistance, besides potential merch, the best thing that you can do is listen to the show. And since you're listening, we're glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here.